last time, I sort of explored the options and ways of sounds I can create. And in that process, I would create a sound and tweak it a little bit and then listen to it and then tweak it a little bit and listen to it. And I got a chance to see what the iteration time of that is. And it occurred to me while I was working on it that a better iteration time there would let me explore that a little faster. I could come up with more cool sounds if I had a better iteration time. So I want to try to fix that. Right now, the whole flow is I finish writing the code and then I have to build, run the code, and then go to the output folder and play the Windows, play the WAV file in a Windows Media Player type player, which has to launch and takes a second as well. So there's sort of a lot of tedious steps slowing down my iteration there. The distance from me finishing writing some code to hearing it is quite a lot. And I was thinking it's probably good to see if we could make that a lot shorter. I think I could get it down to one key press in vocoder, and it can be a little bit rough. As long as we get this thing up and running so that I can iterate faster right now, I'll be happy, and then we'll be able to get rid of this later when a more serious solution is available. So my idea is that we could use this play sound function, which is a very simple function to call. It's possible, I think, with this function that we could just be passing in the full path to a WAV file and that it will play that for us. And so we could combine some stuff together, build a script that does the compile and then on success does the run, and the run won't have to do anything but generate to a WAV file and then play that WAV file. So it should be a really quick single key press, hear the sound kind of experience. It'll be a second because the compile will still take a second, but I'm curious to see if this is a good idea today, so let's get into it. Okay, I just got it to play the sound. I was trying to get it to play. It took a little bit more than I expected. I was hitting a lot of, well, was hitting a bug, but I took a while to track down what the issue was. Along the way, I ended up trying a bunch of things, so I added in a couple new converters, thinking maybe it couldn't handle floating point WAV files, and I needed to down convert to 24-bit or 16-bit WAV files. I also wrote this dumping function so that I could dump a WAV file that was working and see what the difference is. That's kind of how I tried to guide determining what sort of formats to try. And then since I couldn't really find anything obvious there, I decided to also take a look at what the generated WAV file looks like when I dump it, and I spotted the bug, which was that I wasn't filling out one of the fields in the waves format section. So it had all the correct data and everything, but one of the fields that is sort of derived from the other ones was left 0 when I should have done a little arithmetic and filled it out. So I put that fix in, and then it was able to find the sound and play it. So now I've got this function that can do the play sound thing, but now I want to think a little bit about the workflow I want to build here. And what I'm thinking is, having already messed with it for just a moment, it occurred to me that the entire time from hitting a button to doing the entire series of steps that it would take to go from code to playing the sound isn't great, right? So if I have to build the code and then run the generator and then I can hear the sound, that's still kind of slower than what I would want, it causes some problems for me. I think a big part of it is I might want to hear the sound a couple of times in a row to like get a feel for when what the timing of something is, what I like, if I want to tweak it a little bit or a lot in a certain way. It just can be helpful to hear it back to back a couple times. And so having to do that full sequence of events every time I want to hear it is not great. I want to like shorten that gap from I hit the button to hear it to I'm hearing it. Of course, I can't actually skip the build and run the generator steps. Those have to happen in order to get the sound in the first place. But what I'm thinking is I already have the workflow broken out into like these two steps separately happen on separate buttons. So I have a build and I have a run the generator button on my workflow already. So I'm thinking instead of making one button that combines it all, which is what I had originally thought I wanted, it makes a little bit more sense to just add a third button, I think, that just plays it. So what I'm thinking of doing is making a separate program. This will be the first time we've introduced two programs into the code base, and so we'll have to start juggling that a little bit. It's going to create problems down the line. But for now, it'll be a nice, quick, easy program that just grabs the temp file that the main program is going to generate to, and it's going to run this quick play function and be done. And I think that's a pretty good way to make this whole thing work. So I'm going to give that a shot. Okay, so that was mostly just some organizational programming and some workflow programming. The organizational stuff wasn't even doing hard organization work. It's kind of the opposite. This is scaffolding stuff that I'm doing right now. I kind of want to go back and replace everything I just did. It's just that right now it would take a lot of tooling and framework stuff that is going to be valuable to do pretty soon, but it's not quite ready yet. So I kind of did the sloppiest possible organization, which is just throw some stuff at the top level, throw in a couple of extra files to get the thing up and running, build a new batch file that is a copy paste of the old one. It's actually the opposite of good organization because I was going for the scaffolding approach. I'm going to tear all that back down in a few more modules. I'll have all of it in a place where I can replace it. So none of this is carefully organized, but I did want to emphasize that this was probably a pretty valuable thing to do. I think it's pretty useful. I like to be able to take some time and craft my workflow. So the work we've just done here is exactly what I need to make that cycle faster. So I didn't have to build some big complicated system. Luckily, I'm using ForCoder, so I can add more stuff to my workflow really easily with my project scripts. So whatever tools you're using, hopefully you have a way to do the same kind of thing, which is just craft your workflow a little bit. And I find that kind of thing tends to pay off. I also wanted to mention that the batch scripts in particular make me so uncomfortable that I'm going to go ahead and just say now, I think that the next thing I'm going to do after this audio stuff is build out a better build management system, because now we have two different builds in the system and I really hate letting my build systems get into a big hairy mess. So I think I'm calling it now. The next module is going to be, we're going to build up a better build system than just random batch scripts. So that's, I think, what we're going to do, but we got a few more audio things coming up next time. So I'll see you guys then.